Welcome back to America Stands, election coverage in the spirit of faith. We're back again for our second night this week. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Of course, Greg Stevens, Tim Fox, and Buddy Pilgrim. We're back. Tonight is a special night. Tonight is, of course, President Trump's State of the Union address. And as soon as he starts down that famed walk, we'll go to him live and let's see him, of course, and you'll see the entire address live right here on Victory. But the big news tonight, gentlemen, as we get ready for President Trump, let's talk about what happened today. When we went off the air last night, we thought we were going to have we would be talking about who won the Iowa caucus today.
And we still really don't fully know, Gene.
President Trump did.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
There you go. There were two caucuses. There was a Republican and a Democrat. There was no problems with the Republican process. The Democrats had problems counting the results. Still don't know. 62% reporting right now, and we still don't know.
So Tim, you've been involved in the election process for a while now. What does this do when something like this happens with everybody that's working in election?
Well, for one thing, I think it causes a lot of uncertainty. I think the Democrats, in some ways, and you can speak to this maybe, have a little bit of egg on their face in terms of the fact that they can't even count votes for a primary or a caucus. It makes it a little bit difficult for people to believe in the process.
It does, and it leaves no one going out of Iowa with a clear lead.
Right.
You got everybody claiming it. It's the old deal of you get participation trophy, so everybody got a trophy. Everybody's claiming they won last night.
Yeah.
In reality, we really don't know. We literally don't know.
So, Buddy, do you think this is a boost to the Republican Party's platform here as far as election results?
I think it has to be. For one thing, it's a little bit comical that the Democrats who want to run nearly every aspect of our life can't run their own caucus, that they've put under some new form of technology this time around, and they're doing everything from apps to taking photographs of pieces of paper.
And I think it should be noted, too, Gene, that on the Republican side, turnout was at record numbers. Record numbers for a guy that really didn't have anybody running against him. I think the president had a lot of support.
So to show you, I think we have a graphic. If we could put up, we'll show you exactly where we're at here. With about 62% reporting in Iowa. The mayor of Indiana, Buttigieg, is at 27%. Bernie Sanders at 25%. Elizabeth Warren at 18 and Joe Biden at 16. I think he's actually at about 15.6.
Right.
And Buddy, if that's right, you have to be above.
You have to be above
15 to get delegates.
To count it all.
So that's where we're at.
But the delegates are divided up a little bit differently than that, though. So we still don't really know how many delegates each of them are going to get.
And the delegates are important when it comes to the convention and the platforms. And
they are. And in the grand scheme of things, reality, the number of delegates that assigned out of Iowa are like 0.4%.
Correct.
It's not a large amount of delegates. This is all about publicity.
It is.
And that's really why it hurt the Democrats, because the publicity coming out of last night's caucus is not, here's the clear winner, here's clear number two, here's the one who's going to take the lead as they go into New Hampshire. It's a muddled message.
Yeah. Well, I want to make sure right now that we let you know that coming up next Tuesday, gentlemen, we have what's up next is the New Hampshire primary. So we'll be back here next Tuesday night at the same time to be able to cover what's happening there as we cover what is happening right there in New Hampshire. And with for the first night really of the election season, well, we've really got a lot to talk about. But let's go live. I want to show just where we're at. We're watching the feed here as they're getting prepared for everybody filing in to get ready for the president to come in. Greg, tell us what's happening here.
So what's happened, the Supreme Court justices have already entered. The guests are all up in the gallery. This is a joint session. The Senate and the House are together. Everyone centers around that aisle. The Vice President and the Speaker of the House have sent members of both houses to welcome the President and escort him in. The First Lady has already entered in to her seating in the gallery, and now we wait for the Sergeant at Arms to announce that the President of the United States is entering into the People's House.
Let's Tim, real quick, explain to us why we're seeing a large majority of the women in white, all dressed in white.
Well, I'll tell you,
It's from last year.
It's for the ladies' suffrage. The Democrat women several years ago decided to start dressing in white in honor of women's suffrage and getting the vote. So it's to let people know how many liberal Democrat women there are in the House of Representatives. Funny thing about it, when they did this, I guess was this last year?
Yeah, in 18.
Yeah, last year
was the first time.
And President Trump congratulated them on how many Democrat women there were in the House, and they were really surprised that he would congratulate them.
Sort of backfired a little bit, didn't it?
Yeah.
So the Joint Chiefs of Staff are there, sitting along the front, and it is the place to be tonight in Washington. Here we go. I hear the gavel.
Madam Speaker, the President of the United States.
And now everyone always positions themselves to be along that center aisle so they can shake the president's hand, have that little bit of moment to talk to him. The leaders of the House and the Senate will escort him in.
Yeah, traditionally, even members of the opposite party want to be there to be seen shaking the president's hand.
Matter of fact, right there in the screen is Sheila Jackson Lee, Congresswoman from Houston. She's always along the edge there.
She is either there or has one of her staff members there to reserve that seat for her hours in advance. Every State of the Union.
There's the First Lady.
Next to her is Rush Limbaugh.
Rush Limbaugh sitting
Rush
next
Limbaugh.
to her.
You know, a lot of people wonder what is the significance of the State of the Union, and a lot of it obviously is symbolic, of course, but I think what makes the State of the Union so special is, especially for this president, is it gives him an opportunity to speak to the American people without any kind of filter, which he typically does not have an opportunity to do. Normally, you hear the president in sound bites on news stations. This is his opportunity to stand in front of the American people in the people's house and speak to the American people from his heart. Talk about things that he's accomplished up to this point, and talk about some things that he wants to accomplish going forward. And that's what makes this.
Speaking to the Chief Justice and the rest of the justices that are there of the Supreme Court, our newest Justice Kavanaugh, right there shaking the president's hand.
Right.
You know, buddy, I think it's interesting. Not since 1999 did we have a president in the impeachment process delivering his State of the Union address.
Bill Clinton was the last.
Bill Clinton.
It was,
so it's
his impeachment took place, I believe, in January of 1998. Yeah.
So there's a little bit of irony here.
December of 98, so it was January 99.
So he will approach the stage here. He will greet the Speaker of the House.
I do want to mention this just briefly for the sake of people who don't know. Rush Limbaugh is there, as you'll see, as a guest. And in case you haven't heard, Rush Limbaugh announced on his program yesterday that he had been diagnosed with, I don't know if it's stage 4, but it's advanced lung cancer. We need to keep him in our prayers all across this country.
And here we go. The President of the United States, his third State of the Union address.
Members of Congress, the President of the United States.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, Mr. Vice President, members of Congress, the First Lady of the United States. and my fellow citizens, 3 years ago, we launched the Great American Comeback. Tonight, I stand before you to share the incredible results. Jobs are booming, incomes are soaring, poverty is plummeting, crime is falling, confidence is surging, and our country is thriving and highly respected again. America's enemies are on the run. America's fortunes are on the rise, and America's future is blazing bright. The years of economic decay are over. The days of our country being used, taken advantage of, and even scorned by other nations are long behind us. Gone too are the broken promises, jobless recoveries, tired platitudes, and constant excuses for the depletion of American wealth, power, and prestige. In just 3 short years, we have shattered the mentality of American decline, and we have rejected the downsizing of Americans' destiny. We have totally rejected the downsizing. We're moving forward at a pace that was unimaginable just a short time ago, and we are never, ever going back. I am thrilled to report to you tonight that our economy is the best it has ever been. Our military is completely rebuilt, with its power being unmatched anywhere in the world, and it's not even close. Our borders are secure. Our families are flourishing. Our values are renewed. Our pride is restored. And for all of these reasons, I say to the people of our great country, and to the members of Congress, the state of our union is stronger than ever before. The vision I will lay out this evening demonstrates how we are building the world's most prosperous and inclusive society, one where every citizen can join in America's unparalleled success, and where every community can take part in America's extraordinary rise. From the instant I took office, I moved rapidly to revive the U.S. economy, slashing a record number of job-killing regulations, enacting historic and record-setting tax cuts, and fighting for fair and reciprocal trade agreements. Our agenda is relentlessly pro-worker, pro-family, pro-growth, and most of all, pro-American. Thank you. We are advancing with unbridled optimism and lifting our citizens of every race, color, religion, and creed very, very high. Since my election, we have created 7 million new jobs, 5 million more than government experts projected during the previous administration. The unemployment rate is the lowest in over half a century. And very incredibly, the average unemployment rate under my administration is lower than any administration in the history of our country. Yeah. If we hadn't reversed the failed economic policies of the previous administration, the world would not now be witnessing this great economic success. The unemployment rate for African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and Asian Americans has reached the lowest levels in history. African American youth unemployment has reached an all-time low. African American poverty has declined to the lowest rate ever recorded. The unemployment rate for women reached the lowest level in almost 70 years, and last year women filled 72% of all new jobs added. The veterans' unemployment rate dropped to a record low. The unemployment rate for disabled Americans has reached an all-time low. Workers without a high school diploma have achieved the lowest unemployment rate recorded in U.S. history. A record number of young Americans are now employed. Under the last administration, more than 10 million people were added to the food stamp rolls. Under my administration, 7 million Americans have come off food stamps, and 10 million people have been lifted off of welfare. In 8 years under the last administration, over 300,000 working-age people dropped out of the workforce. In just 3 years of my administration, 3.5 million people, working-age people, have joined the workforce. Since my election, the net worth of the bottom half of wage earners has increased by 47%, 3 times faster than the increase for the top 1%. After decades of flat and falling incomes, wages are rising fast, and wonderfully, they are rising fastest for low-income workers who have seen a 16% pay increase since my election. This is a blue-collar boom. Real median household income is now at the highest level ever recorded. Since my election, U.S. stock markets have soared 70%, adding more than $12 trillion to our nation's wealth, transcending anything anyone believed was possible. This is a record. It is something that every country in the world is looking up to. They admire. Consumer confidence has just reached amazing new highs. All of those millions of people with 401ks and pensions are doing far better than they have ever done before, with increases of 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100% and even more. Jobs and investments are pouring into 9,000 previously neglected neighborhoods, thanks to Opportunity Zones, a plan spearheaded by Senator Tim Scott as part of our great Republican tax cuts. In other words, wealthy people and companies are pouring money into poor neighborhoods or areas that haven't seen investment in many decades, creating jobs, energy, and excitement. This is the first time that these deserving communities have seen anything like this. It's all working. Opportunity Zones are helping Americans like Army veteran Tony Rankins from Cincinnati, Ohio. After struggling with drug addiction, Tony lost his job, his house, and his family. He was homeless. But then Tony found a construction company that invests in Opportunity Zones. He is now a top tradesman, drug-free, reunited with his family, and he is here tonight. Tony, keep up the great work, Tony. Thank you, Tony. Our roaring economy has, for the first time ever, given many former prisoners the ability to get a great job and a fresh start. This second chance at life is made possible because we passed landmark criminal justice reform into law. Everybody said that criminal justice reform couldn't be done, but I got it done, and the people in this room got it done. Thanks to our bold regulatory reduction campaign, the United States has become the #1 producer of oil and natural gas anywhere in the world, by far. With the tremendous progress we have made over the past 3 years, America is now energy independent, and energy jobs, like so many other elements of our country, are at a record high. We are doing numbers that no one would have thought possible just 3 years ago. Likewise, we are restoring our nation's manufacturing might, even though predictions were, as you all know, that this could never, ever be done. After losing 60,000 factories under the previous 2 administrations, America has now gained 12,000 new factories under my administration, with thousands upon thousands of plants and factories being planned or being built. Companies are not leaving. They are coming back to the USA. The fact is that everybody wants to be where the action is, and the United States of America is indeed the place where the action is. One of the biggest promises I made to the American people was to replace the disastrous NAFTA trade deal. In fact, unfair trade is perhaps the single biggest reason that I decided to run for president. Following NAFTA's adoption, our nation lost 1 in 4 manufacturing jobs. Many politicians came and went, pledging to change or replace NAFTA, only to do so, and then absolutely nothing happened. But unlike so many who came before me, I keep my promises. We did our job. Six days ago, I replaced NAFTA and signed the brand new U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement into law. The USMCA will create nearly 100,000 new high-paying American auto jobs and massively boost exports for our farmers, ranchers, and factory workers. It will also bring trade with Mexico and Canada to a much higher level, but also to be a much greater degree of fairness and reciprocity. We will have that fairness and reciprocity, and I say that finally because it's been many, many years that we were treated fairly on trade. This is the first major trade deal in many years to earn the strong backing of America's labor unions. I also promised our citizens that I would impose tariffs to confront China's massive theft of America's jobs. Our strategy has worked. Days ago, we signed the groundbreaking new agreement with China that will defend our workers, protect our intellectual property, bring billions and billions of dollars into our treasury, and open vast new markets for products made and grown right here in the USA. For decades, China has taken advantage of the United States. Now we have changed that. But at the same time, we have perhaps the best relationship we've ever had with China, including with President Xi. They respect what we've done because, quite frankly, they could never really believe that they were able to get away with what they were doing year after year, decade after decade, without someone in our country stepping up and saying, "That's enough." Now we want to rebuild our country, and that's exactly what we're doing. We are rebuilding our country. As we restore American leadership throughout the world, we are once again standing up for freedom in our hemisphere. That's why my administration reversed the failing policies of the previous administration on Cuba. We are supporting the hopes of Cubans, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans to restore democracy. The United States is leading a 59-nation diplomatic coalition against the socialist dictator of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro. Maduro is an illegitimate ruler, a tyrant who brutalizes his people. But Maduro's grip on tyranny will be smashed and broken. Here this evening is a very brave man who carries with him the hopes, dreams, and aspirations of all Venezuelans. Joining us in the gallery is the true and legitimate president of Venezuela, Juan Guaido. Mr. President, please take this message back to your family. Thank you, Mr. President. Great honor. Thank you very much. Please take this message back that all Americans are united with the Venezuelan people in their righteous struggle for freedom. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you very much. Socialism destroys nations, but always remember freedom unifies the soul. To safeguard American liberty, we have invested a record-breaking $2.2 trillion in the United States military. We have purchased the finest planes, missiles, rockets, ships, and every other form of military equipment, and it's all made right here in the USA. We are also getting our allies, finally, to help pay their fair share. I have raised contributions from other NATO members by more than $400 billion, and the number of allies meeting their minimum obligations has more than doubled. And just weeks ago, for the first time since President Truman established the Air Force, more than 70 years earlier, we created a brand new branch of the United States Armed Forces. It's called the Space Force. Very important. In the gallery tonight, we have a young gentleman, and what he wants so badly, 13 years old, Ian Lawnfay. He's an 8th grader from Arizona. Ian, please stand up. Ian has always dreamed of going to space. He was the first in his class and among the youngest at an aviation academy. He aspires to go to the Air Force Academy, and then he has his eye on the Space Force. As Ian says, most people look up at space. I want to look down on the world. But sitting behind Ian tonight is his greatest hero of them all. Charles McGee was born in Cleveland, Ohio, 1 century ago. Charles is one of the last surviving Tuskegee Airmen the first black fighter pilots, and he also happens to be Ian's great-grandfather. Incredible story. After more than 130 combat missions in World War II, he came back home to a country still struggling for civil rights and went on to serve America in Korea and Vietnam. On December 7th, Charles celebrated his 100th birthday. A few weeks ago, I signed a bill promoting Charles McGee to Brigadier General, and earlier today, I pinned the stars on his shoulders in the Oval Office. General McGee, our nation salutes you. Thank you, sir. From the Pilgrims to the founders, from the soldiers at Valley Forge to the marchers at Selma, and from President Lincoln to the Reverend Martin Luther King, Americans have always rejected limits on our children's future. Members of Congress, we must never forget that the only victories that matter in Washington are victories that deliver for the American people. The people are the heart of our country. Their dreams are the soul of our country, and their love is what powers and sustains our country. We must always remember that our job is to put America first. The next step forward in building an inclusive society is making sure that every young American gets a great education and the opportunity to achieve the American dream. Yet for too long, countless American children have been trapped in failing government schools. To rescue these students, 18 states have created school choice in the form of opportunity scholarships. The programs are so popular that tens of thousands of students remain on a waiting list. One of those students is Janiyah Davis, a fourth grader from Philadelphia. Janiyah. Janiyah's mom, Stephanie, is a single parent. She would do anything to give her daughter a better future. But last year, that future was put further out of reach when Pennsylvania's governor vetoed legislation to expand school choice to 50,000 children. Janiyah and Stephanie are in the gallery. Stephanie, thank you so much for being here with your beautiful daughter. Thank you very much. But Janai, I have some good news for you, because I am pleased to inform you that your long wait is over. I can proudly announce tonight that an opportunity scholarship has become available. It's going to you, and you will soon be heading to the school of your choice. Now I call on Congress to give 1 million American children the same opportunity Janaya has just received. Pass the Education Freedom Scholarships and Opportunities Act, because no parent should be forced to send their child to a failing government school. Every young person should have a safe and secure environment in which to learn and to grow. For this reason, our magnificent First Lady has launched the Be Best initiative to advance a safe, healthy, supportive, and drug-free life for the next generation, online, in school, and in our communities. Thank you, Melania, for your extraordinary love and profound care for America's children. Thank you very much. My administration is determined to give our citizens the opportunities they need, regardless of age or background. Through our pledge to American workers, over 400 companies will also provide new jobs and education opportunities to almost 15 million Americans. My budget also contains an exciting vision for our nation's high schools. Tonight, I ask Congress to support our students and back my plan to offer vocational and technical education in every single high school in America. To expand equal opportunity, I am also proud that we achieved record and permanent funding for our nation's historically black colleges and universities. A good life for American families also requires the most affordable, innovative, and high-quality health care system on earth. Before I took office, health insurance premiums had more than doubled in just 5 years. I moved quickly to provide affordable alternatives. Our new plans are up to 60% less expensive and better. I've also made an ironclad pledge to American families. We will always protect patients with pre-existing conditions. And we will always protect your Medicare, and we will always protect your Social Security, always. The American patient should never be blindsided by medical bills. That is why I signed an executive order requiring price transparency. Many experts believe that transparency, which will go into full effect at the beginning of next year will be even bigger than health care reform. It will save families massive amounts of money for substantially better care. But as we work to improve Americans' health care, there are those who want to take away your health care, take away your doctor, and abolish private insurance entirely. 132 lawmakers in this room have endorsed legislation to impose a socialist takeover of our health care system, wiping out the private health insurance plans of 180 million very happy Americans. To those watching at home tonight, I want you to know we will never let socialism destroy American health care. Over 130 legislators in this chamber have endorsed legislation that would bankrupt our nation by providing free taxpayer-funded health care to millions of illegal aliens, forcing taxpayers to subsidize free care for anyone in the world who unlawfully crosses our borders. These proposals would raid the Medicare benefits of our seniors and that our seniors depend on, while acting as a powerful lure for illegal immigration. That is what is happening in California and other states. Their systems are totally out of control, costing taxpayers vast and unaffordable amounts of money. If forcing American taxpayers to provide unlimited free health care to illegal aliens sounds fair to you, then stand with the radical left. But if you believe that we should defend American patients and American seniors, then stand with me and pass legislation to prohibit free government health care for illegal aliens. This will be a tremendous boon to our already very strongly guarded southern border, where, as we speak, a long, tall, and very powerful wall is being built. We have now completed over 100 miles and have over 500 miles fully completed in a very short period of time. Early next year, we will have substantially more than 500 miles completed. My administration is also taking on the big pharmaceutical companies. We have approved a record number of affordable generic drugs, and medicines are being approved by the FDA at a faster clip than ever before. And I was pleased to announce last year that for the first time in 51 years, the cost of prescription drugs actually went down. And working together, Congress can reduce drug prices substantially from current levels. I've been speaking to Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa and others in Congress in order to get something on drug pricing done, and done quickly and properly. I'm calling for bipartisan legislation that achieves the goal of dramatically lowering prescription drug prices. Get a bill on my desk and I will sign it into law immediately. With unyielding commitment, we are curbing the opioid epidemic. Drug overdose deaths declined for the first time in nearly 30 years. Among the states hardest hit, Ohio is down 22%, Pennsylvania is down 18%, Wisconsin is down 10%, and we will not quit until we have beaten the opioid epidemic once and for all. Protecting Americans' health also means fighting infectious diseases. We are coordinating with the Chinese government and working closely together on the coronavirus outbreak in China. My administration will take all necessary steps to safeguard our citizens from this threat. We have launched ambitious new initiatives to substantially improve care for Americans with kidney disease, Alzheimer's, and those struggling with mental health. And because Congress was so good as to fund my request, new cures for childhood cancer, and we will eradicate the AIDS epidemic in America by the end of this decade. Almost every American family knows the pain when a loved one is diagnosed with a serious illness. Here tonight is a special man, beloved by millions of Americans, who just received a stage 4 advanced cancer diagnosis. This is not good news, but what is good news is that he is the greatest fighter and winner that you will ever meet. Rush Limbaugh, thank you for your decades of tireless devotion to our country. And Rush, in recognition of all that you have done for our nation, the millions of people a day that you speak to and that you inspire, and all of the incredible work that you have done for charity, I am proud to announce tonight that you will be receiving our country's highest civilian honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. I will now ask the First Lady of the United States to present you with the honor, please. Rush and Catherine, congratulations. Thank you, Catherine. As we pray for all who are sick we know that America is constantly achieving new medical breakthroughs. In 2017, doctors at St. Luke's Hospital in Kansas City delivered one of the earliest premature babies ever to survive. Born at just 21 weeks and 6 days and weighing less than a pound, Ellie Schneider was a born fighter. Through the skill of her doctors and the prayers of her parents, little Ellie kept on winning the battle of life. Today, Ellie is a strong, healthy 2-year-old girl sitting with her amazing mother, Robin. In the gallery, Ellie and Robin, we are glad to have you with us tonight. Ellie reminds us that every child is a miracle of life. And thanks to modern medical wonders, 50% of very premature babies delivered at the hospital where Ellie was born now survive. It's an incredible thing. Thank you very much. Our goal should be to ensure that every baby has the best chance to thrive and grow just like Ellie. That is why I'm asking Congress to provide an additional $50 million to fund neonatal research for America's youngest patients. That is why I'm also calling upon members of Congress here tonight to pass legislation finally banning the late-term abortion of babies. Whether we are Republican, Democrat, or Independent, surely we must all agree that every human life is a sacred gift from God. As we support America's moms and dads, I was recently proud to sign the law providing new parents in the federal workforce paid family leave, serving as a model for the rest of the country. Now I call on Congress to pass the bipartisan Advancing Support for Working Families Act, extending family leave to mothers and fathers all across our nation. $40 million American families have an average $2,200 extra thanks to our child tax credit. I've also overseen historic funding increases for high-quality child care, enabling 17 states to help more children, many of which have reduced or eliminated their wait lists altogether. And I sent Congress a plan with a vision to further expand access to high-quality child care and urge you to act immediately. To protect the environment, days ago, I announced that the United States will join the 1 Trillion Trees Initiative, an ambitious effort to bring together government and private sector to plant new trees in America and all around the world. We must also rebuild America's infrastructure. I ask you to pass Senator John Barrasso's highway bill to invest in new roads, bridges, and tunnels all across our land. I'm also committed to ensuring that every citizen can have access to high-speed internet, including and especially in rural America. A better tomorrow for all Americans also requires us to keep America safe. That means supporting the men and women of law enforcement at every level, including our nation's heroic ICE officers. Last year, our brave ICE officers arrested more than 120,000 criminal aliens charged with nearly 10,000 burglaries, 5,000 sexual assaults, 45,000 violent assaults, and 2,000 murders. Tragically, there are many cities in America where radical politicians have chosen to provide sanctuary for these criminal illegal aliens. In sanctuary cities, local officials order police to release dangerous criminal aliens to prey upon the public instead of handing them over to ICE to be safely removed. Just 29 days ago, a criminal alien freed by the sanctuary city of New York was charged with the brutal rape and murder of a 92-year-old woman. The killer had been previously arrested for assault, but under New York sanctuary policies, he was set free. If the city had honored ICE's detainer request, his victim would still be alive today. The state of California passed an outrageous law declaring their whole state to be a sanctuary for criminal illegal immigrants, a very terrible sanctuary with catastrophic results. Here is just one tragic example. In December 2018, California police detained an illegal alien with 5 prior arrests, including convictions for robbery and assault. But as required by California's sanctuary law, local authorities released him. Days later, the criminal alien went on a gruesome spree of deadly violence. He viciously shot one man going about his daily work. He approached a woman sitting in her car and shot her in the arm and in the chest. He walked into a convenience store and wildly fired his weapon. He hijacked a truck and smashed into vehicles, critically injuring innocent victims. One of the victims is a terrible, terrible situation. Died, 51-year-old American named Rocky Jones. Rocky was at a gas station when this vile criminal fired 8 bullets at him from close range, murdering him in cold blood. Rocky left behind a devoted family, including his brothers, who loved him more than anything else in the world. One of his grieving brothers is here with us tonight. Jody, would you please stand? Jody, thank you. Jody, our hearts weep for your loss, and we will not rest until you have justice. Senator Tom Tillis has introduced legislation to allow Americans like Jody to sue sanctuary cities and states when a loved one is hurt or killed as a result of these deadly practices. I ask Congress to pass the Justice for Victims of Sanctuary Cities Act immediately. The United States of America should be a sanctuary for law-abiding Americans, not criminal aliens. In the last 3 years, ICE has arrested over 5,000 wicked human traffickers, and I have signed 9 pieces of legislation to stamp out the menace of human trafficking domestically and all around the globe. My administration has undertaken an unprecedented effort to secure the southern border of the United States. Before I came into office, if you showed up illegally on our southern border and were arrested, you were simply released and allowed into our country, never to be seen again. My administration has ended catch and release. If you come illegally, you will now be promptly removed from our country. Very importantly, we entered into historic cooperation agreements with the governments of Mexico, Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. As a result of our unprecedented efforts, illegal crossings are down 75% since May, dropping 8 straight months in a row. And as the wall rapidly goes up, drug seizures rise, and the border crossings are going down and going down very rapidly. Last year, I traveled to the border in Texas and met Chief Patrol Agent Raul Ortiz. Over the last 24 months, Agent Ortiz and his team have seized more than 200,000 pounds of poisonous narcotics, arrested more than 3,000 human smugglers, and rescued more than 2,000 migrants. Days ago, Agent Ortiz was promoted to Deputy Chief of Border Patrol, and he joins us tonight. Chief Ortiz, please stand. A grateful nation thanks you and all of the heroes of Border Patrol and ICE. Thank you very much. Thank you. To build on these historic gains, we are working on legislation to replace our outdated and randomized immigration system with one based on merit, welcoming those who follow the rules, contribute to our economy, support themselves financially, and uphold our values. With every action, my administration is restoring the rule of law and reasserting the culture of American freedom. Working with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, thank you, Mitch, and his colleagues in the Senate, we have confirmed a record number of 187 new federal judges to uphold our Constitution as written. This includes 2 brilliant new Supreme Court justices, Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh. Thank you. And we have many in the pipeline. My administration is also defending religious liberty, and that includes the constitutional right to pray in public schools. In America, we don't punish prayer. We don't tear down crosses. We don't ban symbols of faith. We don't muzzle preachers and pastors. In America, we celebrate faith. We cherish religion. we lift our voices in prayer, and we raise our sights to the glory of God. Just as we believe in the First Amendment, we also believe in another constitutional right that is under siege all across our country. So long as I am president, I will always protect your Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. In reaffirming our heritage as a free nation, we must remember that America has always been a frontier nation. Now we must embrace the next frontier, America's manifest destiny in the stars. I am asking Congress to fully fund the Artemis program to ensure that the next man and the first woman on the moon will be American astronauts, using this as a launching pad to ensure that America is the first nation to plant its flag on Mars. My administration is also strongly defending our national security and combating radical Islamic terrorism. Last week, I announced a groundbreaking plan for peace between Israel and the Palestinians. Recognizing that all past attempts have failed, we must be determined and creative in order to stabilize the region and give millions of young people the chance to realize a better future. 3 years ago, the barbarians of ISIS held over 20,000 square miles of territory in Iraq and Syria. Today, the ISIS territorial caliphate has been 100% destroyed, and the founder and leader of ISIS, the bloodthirsty killer known as al-Baghdadi, is dead. We are joined this evening by Carl and Marcia Mueller. After graduating from college, their beautiful daughter, Carla, became a humanitarian aid worker. She once wrote, "Some people find God in church, some people find God in nature, some people find God in love. I find God in suffering. I've known for some time what my life's work is, using my hands as tools to relieve suffering." In 2013, while caring for suffering civilians in Syria, Kayla was kidnapped, tortured, and enslaved by ISIS and kept as a prisoner of al-Baghdadi himself. After more than 500 horrifying days of captivity, al-Baghdadi murdered young, beautiful Kayla. She was just 26 years old. On the night that U.S. Special Forces operations ended al-Baghdadi's miserable life, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, received a call in the Situation Room. He was told that the brave men of the elite Special Forces team that so perfectly carried out the operation had given their mission a name, Task Force 814. It was a reference to a special day, August 14th, Kayla's birthday. Carl and Marcia, America's warriors, never forgot Kayla, and neither will we. Thank you. Every day, America's men and women in uniform demonstrate the infinite depth of love that dwells in the human heart. One of these American heroes was Army Staff Sergeant Christopher Hake. On his second deployment to Iraq in 2008, Sergeant Hake wrote a letter to his one-year-old son, Gage. "I will be with you again," he wrote to Gage. "I will teach you to ride your first bike, build your first sandbox, watch you play sports, and see you have kids also. I love you, son. Take care of your mother. I am always with you, Daddy." On Easter Sunday of 2008, Chris was out on patrol in Baghdad when his Bradley fighting vehicle was hit by a roadside bomb. That night, he made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. Sergeant Hake now rests in eternal glory in Arlington, and his wife, Kelly, is in the gallery tonight, joined by their son, who is now a 13-year-old and doing very, very well. To Kelly and Gage, Chris will live in our hearts forever. He is looking down on you now. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you both very much. The terrorist responsible for killing Sergeant Hake was Qasem Soleimani, who provided the deadly roadside bomb that took Chris's life. Soleimani was the Iranian regime's most ruthless butcher, a monster who murdered or wounded thousands of American service members in Iraq. As the world's top terrorist, Soleimani orchestrated the deaths of countless men, women, and children. He directed the December assault and went on to assault U.S. forces in Iraq, was actively planning new attacks when we hit him very hard. And that's why last month, at my direction, the U.S. military executed a flawless precision strike that killed Soleimani and terminated his evil reign of terror forever. Our message to the terrorists is clear. You will never escape American justice. If you attack our citizens, you forfeit your life. In recent months, we have seen proud Iranians raise their voices against their oppressive rulers. The Iranian regime must abandon its pursuit of nuclear weapons, stop spreading terror, death, and destruction, and start working for the good of its own people. Because of our powerful sanctions, the Iranian economy is doing very, very poorly. We can help them make a very good and short-time recovery. It can all go very quickly, but perhaps they are too proud or too foolish to ask for that help. We are here. Let's see which road they choose. It is totally up to them. As we defend American lives, we are working to end America's wars in the Middle East. In Afghanistan, the determination and valor of our warfighters has allowed us to make tremendous progress, and peace talks are now underway. I am not looking to kill hundreds of thousands of people in Afghanistan, many of them totally innocent. It is also not our function to serve other nations as law enforcement agencies. These are warfighters that we have, the best in the world, and they either want to fight to win or not fight at all. We are working to finally end America's longest war and bring our troops back home. War places a heavy burden on our nation's extraordinary military families, especially spouses like Amy Williams from Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and her two children, 6-year-old Eliana and 3-year-old Rowan. Amy works full-time and volunteers countless hours helping other military families. For the past 7 months, she has done it all while her husband, Sergeant First Class Townsend Williams, is in Afghanistan on his 4th deployment in the Middle East. Amy's kids haven't seen their father's face in many months. Amy, your family's sacrifice makes it possible for all of our families to live in safety and in peace, and we want to thank you. Thank you, Amy. But Amy, there is one more thing. Tonight we have a very special surprise. I am thrilled to inform you that your husband is back from deployment. He is here with us tonight, and we couldn't keep him waiting any longer. Welcome home, Sergeant Williams. Thank you very much. As the world bears witness tonight, America is a land of heroes. This is a place where greatness is born, where destinies are forged, and where legends come to life. This is the home of Thomas Edison and Teddy Roosevelt, of many great generals, including Washington, Pershing, Patton, and MacArthur. This is the home of Abraham Lincoln, Frederick Douglass, Amelia Earhart, Harriet Tubman, the Wright brothers, Neil Armstrong, and so many more. This is the country where children learn names like Wyatt Earp, Davy Crockett, and Annie Oakley. This is the place where the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth and where Texas patriots made their last stand at the Alamo. The beautiful, beautiful Alamo. The American nation was carved out of the vast frontier by the toughest, strongest, fiercest, and most determined men and women ever to walk on the face of the earth. Our ancestors braved the unknown, tamed the wilderness, settled the Wild West, lifted millions from poverty, disease, and hunger, vanquished tyranny and fascism, ushered the world to new heights of science and medicine, laid down the railroads, dug out the canals, raised up the skyscrapers, and ladies and gentlemen, our ancestors built the most exceptional republic ever to exist in all of human history, and we are making it greater than ever before. This is our glorious and magnificent inheritance. We are Americans. We are pioneers. We are the pathfinders. We settled the new world. We built the modern world. And we change history forever by embracing the eternal truth that everyone is made equal by the hand of Almighty God. America is the place where anything can happen. America is the place where anyone can rise. And here, on this land, on this soil, on this continent, the most incredible dreams come true. This nation is our canvas, and this country is our masterpiece. We look at tomorrow and see unlimited frontiers just waiting to be explored. Our brightest discoveries are not yet known. Our most thrilling stories are not yet told. Our grandest journeys are not yet made. The American age, the American epic, the American adventure has only just begun. Our spirit is still young. The sun is still rising. God's grace is still shining. And my fellow Americans, the best is yet to come. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
Well, there you have it, gentlemen. The presidential State of the Union address went a little over 78 minutes as we see the president exiting the chambers.
Walking past the Joint Chiefs of Staff, in case you saw that they did not stand or applaud, it's not they were in disagreement. They're not allowed to.
Right. Correct.
In their military.
Correct.
Nor do the Chief Justices respond.
Neither one are allowed to.
Tonight's address was very reminiscent. In fact, I think, Greg, you mentioned it earlier. There were some very Reagan-esque moments.
There was, especially that last bit reminded me of "It's Morning in America" again.
Right.
What Reagan spoke. Embracing eternal truth that everyone is made equal by the hand of God, and our nation is our canvas. This country is our masterpiece.
He really rose above politics. For a guy who is accused of being not presidential, and sometimes rightfully so, he has that label applied to him.
And I think that's what endeared him, buddy, to America, his boldness.
He's certainly not a politically correct guy, and people love that he's straightforward and honest. But for all the criticism of him being someone who's not presidential, he very much was tonight. He didn't get into impeachment. He didn't get into petty politics.
His trial is tomorrow.
He discussed political issues, but he discussed them in a very positive manner, and he rose to the occasion.
I'm sure, though, even though this is America Stands election coverage in the spirit of faith, and while this may be not necessarily an election coverage tonight, it definitely has an impact on the election process as we continue to move.
President making his way out now.
Through the rest of the season here. You know, he hit the top. We're not really surprised at what he hit. He hit the economy right out of the chute. Talked about America's Space Force. Then he went into education, health care. We'll play a certain clip for sure on religion that he made.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Well, his job is to say the state of the union at the beginning of the year, and then where we're at, what we've done, and then set a vision for this year.
I counted 20 key themes that he covered throughout the speech. He covered a lot of territory, really.
There was a lot. In fact, let's break it down here over the next few minutes. Just stay with us. We're going to give you just some highlights again. We'll play a few clips back again. Right out of the chute, Buddy, I want to address this to you. He talked about unemployment being the lowest in decades here in America.
He did, outstanding, and he went through unemployment overall.
Right.
He went through the fact that unemployment for specific races is the lowest that it's ever been, women the lowest it's ever been, and I think we may have a clip on this. He talked about the fact that because of the unemployment being so low, we've lifted 10 million people off of welfare. In other words, the measure of the greatness of government is not in how many people you have on welfare caring for them.
Right.
It's how many people you lift off of welfare so that they might be able to care for themselves. Let's watch that clip.
Under the last administration, more than 10 million people were added to the food stamp rolls. Under my administration, 7 million Americans have come off food stamps and 10 million people have been lifted off of welfare.
Amazing. And in addition to that, he said 3.5 million have joined the workforce, re-entered
in 3 years.
the workforce in just 3 years.
And yet you hear from the other side, the economy's terrible. The economy's this. The economy's terrible. And he laid it out. African American unemployment, lowest rate. Hispanic American, lowest rate. Asian American, women, youth unemployment, all of those groups, lowest unemployment rate ever in the history of the country. And it's almost hard when you read that and you see those things juxtaposed against what you see on the national news media every day. Somebody's not telling the truth. And I think the numbers obviously support what he was saying about unemployment being the lowest it's ever been for a lot of these groups.
Rising wages as well. We hear that, but wages aren't going up for the average American. But the truth is, they are going up.
Yeah, and he had a line I really liked. Our agenda is relentlessly pro-worker, pro-family, pro-growth, and most of all, pro-American. Yeah. I think that's why he appeals to so many people, because he is for the common man. He cares about, and you saw all the people that he had as guests in the gallery. We'll get to that at some point, I'm sure. Just everyday Americans, people just like you and I, not any special for any reason, but people that make up the fabric of this nation.
One of them even pointed out was Tony Rankins,
Correct.
who was from Ohio. Tony was on drugs and homeless and destitute, started his own construction company. And because of the regulations, Buddy, this is something you know a little bit about, because of the regulations that have been eased since this administration came in, this man is doing well.
Yeah. We really have just seen the tip of the iceberg in terms of what he's done with the regulatory environment. That's really the fourth arm of the government, regulatory agencies.
Yeah. Unelected.
Unelected, absolutely, they're right. The bureaucracies that establish regulations that we have to live by, that control everything from the amount of water that flows through our shower heads, to how much water we can use when we flush a toilet, to the way our dryers and our washers and our dishwashers are built, to the incandescent light bulb. He's brought back those things. You can buy incandescent light bulbs again now. That may not seem like a big thing, but
somebody makes those.
That's freedom.
Right.
That's right.
Right. Yeah. 60,000 factories lost in the previous administration. He says 12,000 new factories back in the United States in the last 3 years, that companies are coming back to the USA.
Yeah, that's great. Let's move on here. One of the things, of course, he talked about the real median household income is now its highest level ever recorded. But then he went into something that we don't hear that much about, Greg, and he talked about 9,000 previously neglected neighborhoods thanks to opportunity zones that have been turned around. Have you heard of this opportunity zones?
You don't hear a lot about it, but this goes back to who Donald J. Trump is.
Yeah.
It goes all the way back to his time in New York many years ago. Matter of fact, there was a city councilman named Jerry Nadler who was trying to stop Trump from buying a neglected neighborhood. He did that we know that as the West Side now, where he has built. He came in and he built that. Jerry wasn't able to stop it, but he revitalized neighborhoods as a builder and an entrepreneur, and he's brought that mentality to government and revitalizing neighborhoods, and it's good for the environment, it's good for people, and it's something that he knows something about.
Well, and it wasn't that many years ago that we heard about how bad oil and gas was here in America, but yet he's turned that around, Buddy, to making oil and gas America the #1 producer of oil and gas in the world by far.
By far. He made that distinction by far.
Yeah. And we're a net exporter of it now. Part of that is because he's made it easier to put the pipelines in place. It's safer to carry oil through a pipeline than it is on a truck.
Right.
To carry it to the coast, carry natural gas to the coast, to put LNG facilities in so that we can ship oil and natural gas all around the world, which helps the balance of trade. It helps other countries that would otherwise use coal-powered plants to be able to use natural gas to produce their own electricity. It helps the environment, the entire world. It's a very positive thing. I don't know if we have this clip or not. Maybe they can let me know in the back. He made a comment about wealthy Americans putting their money back into this country.
Yeah.
On the other side, we hear so much about demonizing wealthy people. That I don't have that clip pulled in, they said, but it talked about he talked about wealthy Americans putting their money back into the country. Investment in business is the driving force of job creation, not just in the United States, in any country. I don't care if it's a communist country, it would be the government that would have to invest in business. And government can never make investment decisions as well as free people can. And wealthy people taking their money, reinvesting it in a business that creates jobs and opportunity for other people and creates goods and services for the customers that they serve is what's made America great.
Yeah, I thought
he's making it even greater.
I thought another great moment was when he had the legitimate, what he called the legitimate president of Venezuela.
Yeah, that's I want to touch on that.
Yeah, before we get to that, let's stay on economy here. He talked about one of the first promises he made was to abolish the NAFTA trade deal.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he did that by establishing the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement, USMCA, into law. That goes back to what you were saying, Buddy, about the oil and gas. We becoming an exporter and being able to really supply the world that was never before. We've never been able to do because of all the restraints.
Well, and we become independent.
Well,
which is huge. I don't think
Well, you're dependent on people that don't like
for
you.
the auto industry. as well.
Yeah.
This is going to help the U.S. auto workers. He's going to end up getting support from auto workers this time around. Huge improvements relative to NAFTA for automobile manufacturing and how much of it has to be made in the United States.
He then went into China, and he started talking about the Chinese. And Greg, I think one thing that stood out to me in this address tonight, he was very presidential. He was very patriotic, but he didn't hold back. There was no holding back when he
There's
came
a lot of
after.
adjectives.
There was a lot more
describe
adjectives
people, especially terrorists. One of the things I noticed, a lot of people don't realize the China agreements, the new agreement with Canada and Mexico, these were just recently done and signed. Matter of fact, while he was on trial, he's continuing the work of America doing these things. And so I thought it was very telling that he thanked this House for helping him get it done. And he said we were getting taken advantage of. And so what they're doing is what the president's done, and it's done that since day one. We're going to make good deals. And right. that's a key component to understanding Donald Trump.
And then he moved right into, Tim, as you were talking about Maduro. And it's interesting, Greg, you and I were talking during
the minute he said it.
The minute he said, there's that prophecy, Brother.
Well, he says this, that Nicolas Maduro is an illegitimate ruler and a tyrant who has brutalized his people. But Maduro's grip of tyranny will be smashed and broken. And he referred to Venezuela as a socialist country. And he's drawing a distinction in that. And it reminded me, and then he recognized the president, the legitimate president.
I think we have that clip.
Here.
Let's roll that clip and you can watch what happened there.
We are supporting the hopes of Cubans, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans to restore democracy. The United States is leading a 59-nation diplomatic coalition against the socialist dictator of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro.
Well, there it was. He called him out.
Socialist dictator. Here's the thing. When the minute that happened, you and I were sitting here next to each other listening to it, and I immediately went to what Brother Copeland said under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit in the Columbia Victory Campaign.
Right.
And he had a prophecy concerning Nicolas Maduro.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure it's archived here on our website somewhere. You can go back and find that. Where Brother Copeland had a word from the Lord concerning Venezuela and concerning Central America. And here this president, he's going to invoke God tonight. He's going to invoke prayer tonight. He's going to invoke the illegitimate regime of Nicolas Maduro.
And by doing that, I mean, he went to the extent of having what he called the real president of Venezuela, Juan. Okay, let's play the clip and you can see him refer to it.
Here this evening is a very brave man who carries with him the hopes, dreams, and aspirations of all Venezuelans. Joining us in the gallery is the true and legitimate president of Venezuela, Juan Guaido. Mr. President, please take this message back to your homeland.
I don't remember a president of another country, especially like this here. Here's what he said.
He said at the very end.
He says this: Americans are united with the Venezuelan people in their righteous struggle for freedom. Socialism destroys nations, but always remember freedom unifies the soul. Well, I want you to know something. Victory Channel, Kenneth Copeland Ministries, we stand with you in Venezuela for your dreams and your aspirations. We pray for you all the time. And from the top all the way down, we are standing in agreement with you, and this nation is as well.
I'd written down on my card and underscored, if there's one dominant theme that ran through it, it is this theme of freedom. He talked about it in everywhere from criminal justice reform, freeing people who had been imprisoned unjustly because of a minor crime, to free trade, to our military strength that keeps us free as a country, to socialism, which was mentioned several times throughout the speech in a variety of different contexts, to warn people, because socialism is the opposite of freedom.
And he reminded us of what I believe is our best as Americans. He did that at the very end, but right after the Venezuela deal, he introduces Charles McGee, who is 100 years old in December, and General McGee now, and he is
one of the last surviving Tuskegee Airmen.
Right, and had him stand in his son. He talked about the Space Force as that regarded, and it not only reminding us of our historic past, patriotic past, but of our future with his grandson.
Our bright future. Yeah, exactly.
And he went through on to education, and he actually brought up Janiyah Davis. He made a point of pointing her out as being able to have the opportunity for education that's really, you notice he's hitting America's buzzwords, the places that we feel when things aren't right. We feel it in these areas the most, and he really made a...
Well, there were so many cool moments in the speech tonight, Gene, so many great times tonight, and that was one when at the end of that segment, he told her that she had a scholarship, that she can now go to the school that she wants to go to.
Well, she's in a failing school. And listen, I'm going to tell you something. Well, you have your child in a Christian school. I do too. I deal with this now as a pastor. Families that want nothing more. Man, I wish I could get my kid where yours goes to school. We just can't afford it because we don't have any school choice. Matter of fact, the president talked about Miss Davis and her failing school and her mom. Let's just play the clip and then I'll come back and talk about it.
Every young person should have a safe and secure environment in which to learn and to grow. For this reason, our magnificent First Lady has launched the Be Best initiative to advance a safe, healthy, supportive, and drug-free life for the next generation, online, in school, and in our communities. Thank you, Melania, for your extraordinary love and profound care for America's children. Thank you very much.
Now, Gene, just prior to that, he's referring to last year the governor of Pennsylvania vetoed a bill that would have given 50,000 kids in Pennsylvania the opportunity for school choice. Listen, in California, that was the number one thing I had with parents coming in crying, wanting to get their kid in a charter school, wanting to get their child, because you want what's best for your children.
That's right.
And these failing schools and the programs are stifling and keeping this. And he's trying to open it up, and he asked for people to, he asked the Congress, step up here and let's get this right.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a little over 15 minutes here left in this before we go off the air. I want us to go into the next section, which he really attacked healthcare head on.
Yes,
and he brought up some successes, some failures, and what was going to happen. So I like this, what he said, this quote here. This is a guarantee. We will always protect patients with pre-existing conditions. We will always protect Medicare and your Social Security. Let's watch this clip.
I've also made an ironclad pledge to American families. We will always protect patients with pre-existing conditions.
Pre-existing, I mean, that's huge because of what's going on in the healthcare system. That's usually the first stop on the way out the door is like, oh, you've got pre-existing, you're not covered.
Well, it's what Republicans are continually falsely accused of not wanting to protect. And he has said from the beginning that he intends to protect people from pre-existing
Well, he
conditions.
piggybacked that by saying providing health care for illegal aliens has got to stop.
Right.
Basically is what he said. And that's bankrupting our nation's health care system because we're funding health care for people that are here illegally.
Yeah.
But he also brought in, Tim, right here, I thought it was really health care. The first place you recognize socialism and it affects is in health care.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sure.
And I want to play this, what he said about socialism when he was talking about health care.
132 lawmakers in this room have endorsed legislation to impose a socialist takeover of our health care system, wiping out the private health insurance plans of 180 million very happy Americans. To those watching at home tonight, I want you to know we will never let socialism destroy American health care.
You know, it was a huge moment there in his address there. But I'm still shocked at the amount of people that did not stand up to applaud anti-socialism.
Yeah.
You know, that we've really got an issue here in America.
We talked about this last night, the fact that the platform for the Democrats is already pretty far left. It's already socialistic, but it's about to go even further left. We were talking earlier, the winner, or at least the leader coming out of Iowa, Pete Buttigieg, is considered the moderate in the Democratic Party. And if you just look up some of the things that he espouses to, I mean, it's all socialism. And so there's a clear distinction in this election. I think that's what he was trying to do there, is draw that distinctive line between America, the great America that we know, and the socialistic potential overtaking of this nation if the wrong people get in office.
The greatest example is Venezuela was
Yes.
at one time a jewel of the Caribbean. They were wealthy, prosperous, doing well, became socialist, and now their people are literally starving.
They are.
And
Eating out
it's
of trash
corrupt.
cans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After, and he quoted a lot of things about, of course, this is the first time in several years that prescription drugs decreased in cost. And of course, he also talked about the states where everything is down a significant amount, and as far as deaths declined, drug overdoses, opioid epidemics. He addressed that, and he did touch again on China and the coronavirus outbreak and how we're working together with them to stop that, childhood cancer. But then this is a very special point in the night for me, was when he took time out and he actually recognized our friend and broadcaster Rush Limbaugh, and what he had done. That was a very special moment when he presented him with the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Right.
So explain what the Medal of Freedom is.
Well, it's the highest medal for a civilian.
For a civilian.
It's not military, but it's our nation's highest.
And I don't think anything like that has ever been done, to the best of my knowledge. You guys can back and tell me.
During a State of the Union
During
address.
a State of the Union address.
Yeah. And I thought it was really, really cool how surprised he was. Now, that's been all over the news. So that news came out earlier today on social media and all over the news stations. But the fact that he did not know,
Rush
he was
genuinely
legitimately
surprised.
genuinely surprised, wasn't he?
I don't think he knew.
Yeah.
No. I'm not sure it's ever been given to anyone where they didn't know it was coming ahead.
Correct. Correct.
You know, even there had been a surprise giving of it to the White House.
Yeah.
You can see it right there where he's announced that next to the First Lady.
This is before he said that he was giving. This is where he had him stand up and say, "Hey, we're praying for you, Rush. We know you got this
and then to have Melania place it on him.
Yeah,
and we prayed for him last night right here on the network, and we're going to continue to pray.
We need to continue to pray for healing
for the
his body.
limbals.
And all of the incredible work that you have done for charity. I am proud to announce tonight that you will be receiving our country's highest civilian honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've never seen Rush Limbaugh without with a loss for words, but there it is.
Speechless for the first time
There
in his
it is.
life.
And in this day and age,
And listen, a lot of people hate him and don't like him, and you may not like him a lot, but what he's done for First Amendment, being able to speak your mind and freedom of speech and opening up radio again, made radio.
He really
popular
saved
again.
talk radio.
Yeah, he did.
Really did save
He
talk
really
radio.
Saved AM radio for certain.
He definitely saved AM radio.
Absolutely did.
So he went on to talk about advancing support for the Working Families Act, extending family leave to mothers and fathers all across the nation. That was met with resounding support from both sides of the...
We covered life in between those two.
Well, when he introduces the little girl from Kansas City, Ellie Schneider.
Yes. Yep. 21 weeks of age when she was born.
21 weeks, 6 days,
and
born. And she fought and lived. And in that, everybody cheers. Then he says this, I looked at Gene, and Gene, I said to you, he's setting them up.
Right.
He's setting them up right here. He says, this is why I am asking the Congress to provide an additional $50 million to fund neonatal research for America's youngest patients. And, of course, all sides
they love that.
Stood up and cheered. And then I'm also calling for all members of Congress here tonight to pass legislation finally banning the late-term abortion
let's watch
of babies. Watch this.
That is why I'm also calling upon members of Congress here tonight to pass legislation finally banning the late-term abortion of babies.
And then they don't stand. They have to sit down real quick.
He's very specific. He calls it what it is. He said the late-term abortion of babies.
Of babies.
It's not a fetus. It's not fetal tissue.
Yep.
It's not anything else.
Well, there's a 2-year-old. There's a 2-year-old girl up there that was 21 weeks. She was a baby.
Yes. Right. And this is why we call what we do coverage in the spirit of faith. Let me read for you what the Word of God says in Deuteronomy 30, verse 19. Today I have given you the choice between life and death, between blessings and curses. Now I call on heaven and earth to witness the choice you make. Oh, that you would choose life, so that you and your descendants might live. That's why it matters.
Yeah.
That's why when you have a platform on one side that says abortion ought to be readily available, as you mentioned last night, and one on the other side that says life is precious, that's a pretty big distinction, and one that should not be very difficult for you to look at and say, this is where I need to vote.
And this president says in his statement right after that, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent, surely we must all agree that every human life is a sacred gift from God.
Yeah, yes. Absolutely.
He then moved right on in. He talked a little bit. He did embrace the environment with his Trees Act he referred to, and of course the infrastructure with roads, calling on Congress for more roads and infrastructure building. Then he went right into support for the military, and specifically he brought out about ICE and our protecting our borders. And so it was interesting. He actually brought out, I have this line here where he talked about the state of California passing an outrageous law declaring their whole state to be a sanctuary for illegal immigrants with catastrophic results. This was a very pointed attack on what the sanctuary city concept that the Democrats have pushed. And so I think it's interesting that this is another very specific point that he was making. This isn't working, and here's why. And he referred to a couple of examples of horrible acts of crime that happened and murder that happened from people that normally would not have even been allowed in the U.S.
That's exactly right.
And of course, hitting the wall there, talking about that as well.
He's drawing the distinction between the two, between this party and this party. He's not trying to draw a distinction and divide America. He's pointing the difference between this is what this believes, this is what this believes, and as America, this is what we believe. And so he's casting a vision, and he's reminding of us our history and casting a vision for the future. I really see it as a platform speech in a way.
Yeah, it was.
Between the two.
Definitely was. He went into actually, I'm skipping over some stuff here, unprecedented effort to secure the borders, including how much seized more than 200,000 pounds of narcotics, more than 3,000 human smugglers arrested, and rescued more than 2,000 migrants. That in itself is a huge accomplishment.
Very much so.
With what our agents have to handle there on the border. Yes, Betty.
There are several places through here where he used some very specific words that, though he in no way tried to make this a religious speech, that's not his job, and I wouldn't expect it to be.
But I've heard more about God.
But he used some very specific words that recognize this fact that we know comes from God's Word. There is good and evil in this world.
Right.
This world is not a world that's just full of gray and that everyone can decide what's right and what's wrong. There is a standard for what's right and what's wrong. And he called human traffickers wicked. He referred to how evil Soleimani was and the acts that he had performed.
Right.
He referred to the people who killed innocent victims here in terms that are very stark like that, to recognize there is a contrast between good and evil. And we have to recognize that as well, as we pick the choice, the direction that our country will go.
We're running out of time here in the 3 minutes. I want to get to this. This is obviously our favorite.
You stood up out of your chair on this.
Yeah, I was ready. Where he actually met head on. He went, I've never seen a president ever talk about freedom of religion quite like President Trump did. Let's watch.
My administration is also defending religious liberty, and that includes the constitutional right to pray in public schools. In America, we don't punish prayer. We don't tear down crosses. We don't ban symbols of faith. We don't muzzle preachers and pastors. In America, we celebrate faith. We cherish religion. We lift our voices in prayer, and we raise our sights to the glory of God. Just as we believe in the First Amendment, we also believe in another constitutional right that is under siege all across our country. So long as I am president, I will always protect your Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms.
To pretty much red meat there. That's red meat issues.
That is very much red meat. And you notice he was really pointing out, muzzle our preachers and pastors.
Yeah.
I mean, he was talking about the Johnson Amendment. I mean,
And that's why we're here.
We are able to be here because of that.
Yeah.
So we got 2 minutes, so I want to wrap this up. We didn't get through everything. I mean, I want us to get to the very end. This is the part that we talked about. It's very President Reagan-esque.
In my mind.
For sure, in my mind as well. And the way he talked about Americans. And when Reagan came into the presidency, he really brought back a patriotism. You felt good. Felt like, hey, we are a good country again. Yeah. So, Buddy, final thoughts here as we wrap this up.
He wrapped this up talking about our heritage of greatness. And we have that in this country. We truly have a heritage of greatness. There's no other country on the face of the earth like the United States of America that is created as many things, created as much wealth, lifted as many people out of poverty, freed so many people from all around the world from tyranny and dictators. There's no other country around the world that was formed by people because of their interest in being able to worship the God that they wanted to worship and serve. God's hand's been on this country, and it's important to keep it on this country.
Amen. That's good. All right, so next week, right here, February 11th at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, we'll be right here at this table talking about what's going on in the New Hampshire primary. Until then, Tim, You're going to be covering news breaks and showing what's going on.
Mike and I'll have news breaks in the next week or so.
Might have some Iowa results.
May have some Iowa results.
By next week. By next week.
So if you need to catch up on anything you want coverage, go back and watch. Just visit govictory.com/America Stands. It's govictory.com/America Stands. Thank you to Brother Copeland and Gloria, George and Terry, pastors, to let us be able to sit here and bring to you the State of the Union and America Stands every year. We're so glad to be a part. Until we see you again next week, remember this, guys. Here we go. God loves you. We love you.
And Jesus is Lord.
We'll see you next week.